we're going to do a Drinker video. Cause Drinker did a crash and burn recently. He did it, what, 5 days ago? A week ago. Drinker did a crash and burn a week ago. I brought the favorite person that we love to hate. He did a crash and burn on Kathleen Kennedy. So let us take a look at Drinker's post-mortem of the age of Kathleen Kennedy.
Kathleen Kennedy. If ever there was a name synonymous with the destruction of pop culture franchises, the humiliation of beloved legacy characters, creative mismanagement, missed opportunities, and the unwelcome injection of the message into modern entertainment, it's this one woman. Yeah, other people have arguably committed worse crimes against cinema, but Kennedy did it first and did it biggest. And
more to the point, the one that did it worse was given the green light by Kathleen Kennedy. So Rian Johnson did it worse, but she approved it and probably encouraged it.
Now that she's finally, officially, definitively stepped down as president of Lucasfilm, to the relief of literally dozens of Star Wars fans that are still invested, and beginning her extended walk into the wilderness of retirement, it seems like the right time to make what I hope will be my last ever video on this subject. Because if anyone...
Yeah, who wants to tell him? No, even though he already knows. Like, Drinker already knows she's not gone. For those of you who don't know, Kathleen Kennedy is not leaving Lucasfilm. She is stepping down as the head of Lucasfilm and stepping back into her role of producer. So she's not gone. She is going to be a shadow head of Lucasfilm. She's only going to be listed as a producer, but 100%. Filoni and the other woman that is like co-heading Lucasfilm with Filoni will take their marching orders from Kathleen Kennedy, even when she's only a producer. Guaranteed.
Anyone deserves a crash and burn, it's her. Not so much because she nuked her own career and torched her own legacy. We'll get to that in due course, though.
Yes.
But because she managed to burn down literally everything around her, leaving a trail of devastated IPs in her wake, while somehow holding on to power as head of one of the biggest studios in the business. Perhaps the...
Star Wars is dead and its corpse has been beaten into the Earth's core at this point. Star Wars is, unless Star Wars, along with pretty much every other pop culture sci-fi franchise, is put to bed for at minimum 10 years, it will stay dead. Star Wars as well needs to be put to bed for 10 years at minimum. So everyone can forget about it, so the movie industry can forget about it, and maybe if they can get people that, I know, tall order on this one, know what the fuck they're doing, come in to actually work the franchises, then maybe they can revive it. Again, X to fucking doubt with all of them. I think it's like, they're all done. Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who, Willow, all of our favorite sci-fi franchises and even non-sci-fi franchises like Indiana Jones, they're all dead. They're all dead. To make a famous quote, they're all dead. They just don't know it yet.
The greatest example of failing upwards that Hollywood's ever seen, and believe me, it's seen a lot. So grab your bargain bin Rey Skywalker action figure and let's embark on Crash and Burn, the Kathleen Kennedy story. Kennedy was born in 1953 in Berkeley, California, one of 3 daughters of Donald Kennedy, a judge, and Dionne Marie, a part-time theatre actress. After majoring in telecommunications and film studies at university, she soon found work at a local TV station in San Diego as a camera operator, floor manager, and eventually a production coordinator. It was clear though that if she wanted to progress in the business, she'd have to move to LA, which she did in 1978, and soon landed her first job as a production assistant to John Milius, who at the time was overseeing Steven Spielberg's troubled comedy movie 1941. Basically, her job was to take
Really? 1941 was troubled? That I didn't know about. 1941 is a good movie. That's like, it's like, I think that's Spielberg's only actual comedy. Because for those of you guys that don't know, 1941, I disagree. I disagree. I think 1941 was a great movie. It was hilarious. Really? Okay, I may have to show it to you guys on movie night. I thought 1941 was great. Yeah, it was a movie with Belushi, with Dan Aykroyd, what's his name? Shit, I can't remember his name. The actor who played Van Wilder's father, and he was also in Animal House. God, for life, I cannot remember the actor's name. He was in it. I think Maggie Gyllenhaal was in it. Wait, was that Maggie Gyllenhaal? It might have been Maggie Gyllenhaal. Who else was in it? Like the pilot. Not necessarily. It's like I don't know why people are saying it's bad. No, not Jim Belushi. John Belushi. John Belushi was in this one. Was Ned Beatty might have been in it? Like, this was a funny movie. It's long, but it's a funny movie. It's the whole concept of it's on the cusp of World War II. It's on the cusp of World War II, and this like town in like in California, it's like a small town, not LA or anything. It's a small town in California. Is like they're all preparing for the war, and it's like how the citizens are like doing this thing of like preparing to defend their homes and like putting like fucking artillery pieces in their front lawns. Tim Matheson, thank you, Remy. Yeah, that's his name, the guy that's in it. And it's funny. It's honestly it's funny. There's so much going on in the movie, like you kind of have to watch it a couple times to catch all of the little details. I might show it to you guys on movie night. I think maybe I'll show it to you because I don't know why it's getting hated. It's actually a good movie. It's like legit a good movie.
Spielberg's troubled comedy movie 1941. Basically, her job was to take notes, run errands, and make coffee. 3 things that she was spectacularly bad at.
I remember Kathy came into the room with her steno pad and her pencil, and she was horrible at taking notes, and she was terrible at, she didn't really know how to do it very well. But what she did know how to do was interrupt somebody in mid-sentence. We'd be pitching ideas back and forth, and Kathy, who's supposed to be writing these ideas down, suddenly put her pencil down and would say something like, and what if he didn't get the girl, but instead he got the dog?
Right.
So already, early on, we see the makings of what we came to know. I know better than you, and you will listen to me. Yeah, so she's been terrible and forcibly injecting her ideas into Hollywood from the very beginning. You're shocked. I know.
Spielberg, though, for whatever reason, took a liking to her and hired her as his personal assistant for Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now,
took a liking to her, i.e., she was more than willing to pull up her skirt and drop her panties for him.
She might have been shit at taking notes, but to her credit, she was organised, diligent and efficient, able to solve problems and mediate disagreements. She soon rose through the ranks to become an associate producer on Poltergeist, and finally a full-on producer for E.T. in 1982. Not bad for a 29-year-old. The pattern for her career was now set, and she would act as producer for nearly all of Spielberg's movies for the next 30 years. She wasn't what you would call a creative person, because she didn't really need to be. Her job was to facilitate other people's creative visions, organise logistics, overcome all the problems and hurdles that cropped up along the way. It might not have been sexy or exciting work, it wasn't the sort of thing the general public ever got to see, but it was important and it won her a lot of respect in the industry. She was a project manager basically, and to be fair, she was good at it. Her work on the Indiana Jones movies also brought her into the orbit of 2 other men who would turn out to be cornerstones of her career, George Lucas and Frank Marshall. In the case of the first man, they became close colleagues and friends and stayed that way for decades. Maybe not so much today though, and in the case of the latter, they were married by 1987. As you can probably imagine, having close personal relationships with three of the most powerful and respected men in the business did wonders for her career.
And what do you want to bet that maybe that was by design to try and fulfill her upward rise in the industry, that she got married to Marshall because doing so would basically garner her a degree of power and allow her to rise up in the industry. So she basically could just go, I'm the fucking boss now. You're gonna do what I say.
And by the mid-90s, she was regarded as one of the most influential producers in the industry. She even co-founded Amblin Entertainment with Spielberg and the Kennedy Marshall production company with her husbands. All good stuff, and if she'd continued on this course of producing and overseeing individual movies, she probably would have had a stellar career and retired as the single most successful female producer ever. As it turned out though, fate had other plans for Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah?
Remember George Lucas that she'd befriended back in the 1980s? Well, by 2012, he was getting old and burned out after making the Star Wars prequels and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Disney were offering to buy up Lucasfilm from him, and he was very much tempted by the offer, but what he really needed was a safe pair of hands to leave the company in. And from his point of view, Kennedy seemed like the perfect choice. He knew her personally, he trusted.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Her, and when it came to experience, there was nobody who could rival her. So, in late 2012, the deal was done. Disney bought over Lucasfilm, and Kathleen Kennedy was installed as president of the company. A move that few people took issue with at the time. That, however, would soon change. Things started out well, at least. J.J. Abrams, arguably the safest pair of hands in the business at the time, delivered a massive box office hit with The Force Awakens, the first movie in a new Star Wars trilogy. Yeah.
Which, I will say, The Force Awakens was okay. I never considered The Force Awakens to be any big thing. In fact, the one thought that ran through my head when I saw The Force Awakens is, so we're retelling A New Hope. Is that was literally the movie. We're retelling A New Hope. And that's it. Yeah, I would classify it as mediocre at best. And it basically just went down from there. I don't even know if I would call it painfully safe. Cause to a degree, it was kind of boring. It's like you've got Star Wars coming back after, God, how many years was it after Revenge of the Sith? It was like 20 years after Revenge of the Sith that we're finally getting a new Star Wars movie that's was it 10 years? Okay, 10 years. That's continuing the trilogy. And this is how they opened it. And it's like, it kind of landed with a bit of a splat. Because it's like, okay, we knew we were going to be getting new characters, but then it kind of went like pear-shaped. Because you had Rey and Finn. And I think one of the big problems people had is that the characterizations were too modern day. Like there was like the attitude, the dialogue didn't feel Star Wars. It felt like something out of a modern day film and not Star Wars. And yeah, everybody wanted Finn to be the Jedi. Hell, the marketing for the movie made it seem like Finn was gonna be the lead character. All the marketing that they did made it seem like his character was going to be the lead. His character was going to be like the new Luke Skywalker. You saw fuck all of Rey, and then they pulled a complete 180 on it and just went fucking worse from there. Finn would have been a great character. The idea of a former conscripted stormtrooper actually becoming a Jedi and being the savior of the Republic, of the New Republic, is an interesting idea and has all sorts of like story possibilities of him coming to grips with what he did as a stormtrooper and how he reconciles that into being a Jedi, because Jedi is supposed to be like, you know, pure and empty of like heightened emotions, and he's got all of this like turmoil and baggage that he has to cope with while becoming a Jedi. It could have been a really interesting story. And then they fucked it up and regulated him to a not even a side character that by the third movie was just running around screaming Rey the whole fucking movie. Yeah. But as far as Force Awakens itself goes, it was mediocre. For a Star Wars movie, especially an eagerly anticipated Star Wars movie, at best it was mediocre, along with things not making sense.
It was just a glorified nostalgia trip and a thinly disguised rehash of A New Hope, but who cares?
Yeah.
Star Wars was back, baby, and it was bigger than ever. The following year, Rogue One proved that Star Wars could release spin-offs and
Like, the one thing I did like
and it was bigger than
about
ever.
it is the ship combat. The way that the ships seemed a bit more agile, I like that. I did like in Force Awakens how they were able to play around with the Falcon and make it like more agile in an atmospheric setting where they were able to like, you know, do like the heel turn like this, and you know the barrel rolls and the maneuverability of it. I did like that. I thought that was kind of cool the way that they played around with this. But that's like one of the few things that I actually liked about Force Awakens.
The following year, Rogue One proved that Star Wars could release spin-offs and prequels to the main story that were still financially viable, allowing them to potentially kickstart an entire cinematic universe just like the MCU. Unfortunately, the good times weren't to last. See, going from producer on specific film projects where you have very clearly defined tasks, objectives and responsibilities to head of an entire studio that was centered around one man's creative vision is a pretty big leap that demands a whole new set of skills. Skills that Kathleen Kennedy absolutely didn't have. What she needed was a strong creative vision for where she wanted to take the franchise and how she was going to get it there. She needed to plan and map out release schedules for multiple films with directors and writers that were actually suited to the projects in hand. She needed to keep people on track, monitor progress, and juggle multiple projects at the same time. She needed to be a leader.
Oh god, Captain Phasma. One of the most wasted fucking characters in the franchise. Holy crap. They had Gwendolyn fucking Christie as Captain Phasma, and she was the most absolutely cucked out, wasted character in the franchise. Everybody, when Phasma first showed up and they heard Gwendolyn Christie's voice, everybody's like, oh shit, we actually have a badass female character that with Gwendolyn Christie playing the role probably could actually walk the walk and actually be a kick-ass female character. And literally she gets like 2 minutes of screen time and gets the most pathetic death out of all of them. What a fucking like a waste in a sea of wasted opportunities.
Now, not a facilitator. And this is where it all started to go wrong. Kennedy had hired up-and-coming director Rian Johnson to write and direct The Last Jedi, the second movie in the sequel trilogy. Unlike JJ though, who was all about nostalgia and fan service, Rian was determined to shake things up and subvert fan expectations, not live up to them. And boy did he ever, throwing out JJ's proposed ideas for the sequel, killing off most of his plot threads, and completely going into business for himself. Now, George Lucas probably would have stepped in at this point and told him he was being a fucking idiot, but the lack of a strong overarching plan for the sequels, combined with Kennedy's attitude of, just let them get on with it, ultimately doomed the movie. TLJ turned out to be the most divisive Star Wars film of all time, completely splitting the fan base into warring factions and bringing in barely half of what Force Awakens had made.
I would even argue that it didn't, quote, split everyone. There was a much larger side of when there was a much larger side that said, I fucking hate this. Then there was a side of, oh, this is the best thing ever. Like the side that loved it was minuscule compared to the side that, like, I fucking hate this shit. You have destroyed Star Wars. No, sure. Yeah, it was like 90-10, 80-20, like a split of that variety. So it like, there's like, to say that like, oh, it split the fandom. No, it basically fractured the fandom into these two camps, and the camp that loved Star Wars was infinitely smaller than the camp that said you have just destroyed this franchise. And the worst part is they did. TLJ was basically the lit fuse on the destruction of Star Wars. Rian Johnson literally lit the fuse on the destruction of the entire franchise with TLJ. There was no coming back afterwards. And now Star Wars is dead. It's a dead franchise. And he's the one that started it.
Worse, it introduced identity and gender politics into Star Wars in a way that had never existed before. And believe me, this was intentional. One of Kennedy's goals with Star Wars was to increase female representation on screen, in the belief that not only would the franchise retain the inbuilt male audience, they'd also attract a brand new female audience that had been put off until now. A modern audience, you might say. The devil, though, is in the detail, and no idea can survive bad execution. Suddenly, people were hyper-aware of overpowered, overbearing girl boss characters like Rey, Holdo, and Rose Tico, and they didn't like them. Kennedy's decision to take part in
and yeah, you can also point to Star Wars: The Last Jedi as the thing that really kick-started the downfall of Hollywood. You'd seen like hints of it before TLJ, yeah. I'm not saying like, oh, it hard started with TLJ. You'd seen hints of it in Hollywood productions prior to TLJ. TLJ literally caused the explosion of modern Hollywood. You can, when you look at Hollywood, when you look at the history of Hollywood, and you ask, like, when the hell did we go to like all the girl bossing, gender identity politics, the message, the modern audience, all of that? You can actually point to TLJ as the start point, as the true start point. It was TLJ. It didn't start with The Force Awakens. There were little hints of it there. Like when Rey suddenly like is able to repair the Falcon better than Han Solo can, where he's like, how did you fix that? And she's just like, I'm a genius. It's not what she said, but you get what I mean. There were hints of it in The Force Awakens. You can point to you can actually point to the decline of Hollywood to TLJ. Ghostbusters, that's where I said there was like, okay, Ghostbusters was overt with it, yes. But I think in terms of overarching, what, yeah, the Falcon. What did I say? I said the Falcon, didn't I? Wait, did Ghostbusters come out after? I can't remember the release date of TLJ. But, Ghostbusters, yeah, people look at Ghostbusters, but yeah, it didn't have the same degree of popularity. It was the destruction of another franchise, for sure. But in terms of Hollywood as a whole, the way people view Hollywood, i.e., nobody has any faith in Hollywood anymore, and that Hollywood is all about spreading the message and ticking check boxes to the point where they said, to the point where there's now literally a checklist for the Oscars, like you must have like representation in your movie to even be considered for Oscars, like they actually think the Oscars mean anything anymore. This, you can actually point to the start of it with TLJ. It was the movie that started Hollywood on this trend, because all the other studios saw Disney do this with TLJ and how they were, how Disney was crowing about how successful it is. And the other studios said, yeah, we need to do that too. And so all of a sudden, all of Hollywood went this route. And it started with The Last Jedi and Kathleen Kennedy.
The Force's female campaign for Nike in 2017, combined with her obvious feminist sensibilities, instantly put her in the firing line. For most detractors of the sequel trilogy, she became the big bad of Star Wars, an unqualified diversity hire promoted to a job she didn't earn, presiding over a franchise she didn't build, and killing everyone's fun by populating it with annoying, unlikable self-insert power fantasies. Solo, the next spin-off movie in the Star Wars cinematic universe, bombed in spectacular fashion, partly driven by the ongoing backlash against TLJ. There would be no more spin-off movies after that.
Well, not only just the backlash of TLJ, it's again the inserting of identity politics into Star Wars. They turned Lando Calrissian into a fucking pansexual that fucked his navigator robot. You had the navigator robot that was a fucking activist, because don't forget, this was around the time of when there was a whole shitload of activism against Trump for his first term. So of course they made the robot a fucking activist that Donald Glover's Lando Calrissian was fucking on a daily basis because he's pansexual. Yeah, it was not simply just The Last Jedi that killed Solo. It's the fact that Solo was written like a piece of shit. It was. Like, the actor who played Han Solo wasn't bad. He kind of, like, you could see glimpses there of a performance that sort of embodied the performance of Han Solo, like Harrison Ford. But it's just like, they tried to, they made it for the modern audience. That, yeah, and yes, the one who played the activist robot was Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Yeah, I know. But yeah, that's what it was. It's not simply just, because of what people thought of Jedi. It's the fact that they took everything bad about Jedi and put it into Solo. And so it fucking bombed.
The great Rian Johnson experiment had failed, the Star Wars cinematic universe was stalled, and now they needed to get back to safer territory for the final movie. J.J. Abrams was coaxed back to tell a story he didn't really want to tell, desperately trying to undo the damage done by TLJ, only to produce an absolute Frankenstein's monster of a film in Rise of Skywalker.
God, yes.
Reviews were terrible, the fans were disgusted, and the film barely cleared $1 billion at the global box office, a far cry from the success of The Force Awakens. With the movie business in tatters, Kennedy and Lucasfilm retreated to TV, where they scored a surprise hit with The Mandalorian, mostly because it had Jon Favreau at the helm. The success wasn't to last though, and failures like Boba Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi failed to capitalize on its success. Lucasfilm by this point...
And not to mention Mandalorian Season 3, but Seasons 1 and 2 of Mandalorian were good. I liked Mandalorian Season 1 and 2. Season 3 sucked. Season 3, they literally cucked the Mandalorian in his own show. They literally turned the Mandalorian into a side character in his own show, with all of the defenders going, well, his show's called The Mandalorian. It could be any Mandalorian. It doesn't have to be Din Djarin. It could be Bo-Katan. It doesn't matter. The show's called The Mandalorian. And of course, these people are idiots because we've been following around Din Djarin for 2 fucking episodes. Yeah, it's his show. No matter how much you desperately want to try and say that, oh, anyone can be the Mandalorian, we've been following this guy around for 2 seasons. It's his fucking show. They just didn't like it because he was a man. That's why they didn't like it. Well, that's one of the reasons. It's I'm talking about one thing. There was a conglomeration of things. It was that they made Bo-Katan more of a Mandalorian than Din Djarin, who we've been following for 2 seasons. They fired Gina Carano, who was a fan favorite, and the reason they fired her was absolute bullshit. So it's just a conglomeration of all of these factors that people just fucking hated. And that is before even getting into Boba Fett, where they basically just destroyed. They eviscerated a franchise fan favorite character in service to the message.
point was rapidly descending into chaos. New Star Wars projects were announced to
And
huge
that's even before
fanfare,
talking
only to
about,
go nowhere and
Obi-Wan.
quietly fizzle out without explanation. By now, Kennedy was raiding the cupboards at Lucasfilm in search of anything she could use to prop the company up. Willow, a 1980s fantasy movie, was brought back in a baffling TV show about a pair of lesbians so disastrously awful that Disney ended up scrubbing it from their servers and memory holing it. To this day, there's no legal way to view it online. Indiana Jones was defrosted for one last adventure, mostly in the hopes of replacing him with a younger female alternative.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays
Of
off for us.
course.
It didn't work, and
By the way, replacing him with a younger female alternative that treats him like shit and has absolutely zero respect for him. Leave us not forget that. It's not simply replacing him with a female alternative. It's that they treated the character of Indiana Jones like utter dog shit. They stomped him into the ground.
despite massively expensive reshoots to try to fix it, the movie flopped at the box office. The biggest humiliation for Kennedy was yet to come, though. The Acolyte, a show that will live in Star Wars infamy as long as Hollywood exists. A pair of strong, diverse female leads, lesbian space witches, weak men getting humiliated. It was all there, and it was all terrible. And in a way, it represents the final form of Kennedy's vision for Star Wars, and it was utterly eviscerated by everyone. The backlash was so bad that even Disney had to step in and promise not to make any more. Now, if you're spotting a theme here of Kennedy resurrecting old IPs and using them as a launchpad for diverse...
Only they didn't want to. Indy had a son. But there's your key word. Son. Disney hates men. Disney and Kathleen Kennedy hates men. They only want women. Only women can be the protagonist, the lead protagonist in everything now, in Lucasfilm. Because girl boss. That's what it boils down to. Because Kathleen Kennedy was in charge, everything had to be female girl boss. All the guys were cucked out, and that's just how it was going to be. And yeah, no redheaded women. I know, the ginger side continues with Disney.
Spotting a theme here of Kennedy resurrecting old IPs and using them as a launchpad for diverse new girl boss replacements, then believe me, you're not alone.
Put a chick in it, make her gay!
She'd gambled some of the biggest franchises in Hollywood history on the modern audience, and wow, did she lose big. To paraphrase Chris Gore, she took boy brands that everyone could enjoy and turned them into girl brands that nobody enjoyed. Men felt excluded and
No, Emperor, no, don't bring back Marte. I do not trust Disney to bring back Mara Jade and not treat her like shit. She'll go from the kick-ass, badass woman, like former assassin turned Jedi master and teacher, and they'll just girl boss the shit out of her and turn her into a door-riding cunt. No. Do not bring back Mara Jade. They'll diversify the fuck out of her and make her a laughingstock, and they will have destroyed yet another fan-favorite Star Wars character. No. At Disney, you don't touch Mara Jade.
Could enjoy and turned them into girl brands that nobody enjoyed. Men felt excluded and disrespected, and women felt patronised and pandered to. The modern audience had failed to show up, and the existing audience was abandoning ship. Kennedy's greatest gamble had failed, and inevitably it all finally caught up with her. For years there had been rumours of her retirement, false starts and
Look at that fight. This is what I was talking about.
was abandoning
this was the
ship.
Phasma,
Kennedy's greatest
the
gamble
big
had
Phasma
failed,
fight
and
against
inevitably
Finn. She is supposed to be one of the best. She's a chromed out stormtrooper.
It all finally caught up with her. For years there had been rumours of her retirement, false starts and conspiracy theories, but one thing was obvious. Kennedy wasn't going anywhere until she was damn well good and ready. And on January 15th, the day finally came. Kathleen Kennedy was stepping down as president of Lucasfilm. You might have expected joyous celebrations at news like this, but the reaction was more like an exhausted acknowledgement from the fans. After all, what was really left to celebrate at this point? She was gone, sure, but she left behind her a studio in absolute shambles, all of its IPs drained of their goodwill and cultural reputation. There was nothing left to save from her because she'd nuked all of it. And now that the dust is settled and all is said and done, how will posterity judge Kathleen Kennedy? Will she be remembered as one of the greatest producers in Hollywood history, or the woman who oversaw the biggest act of brand destruction the industry's ever seen?
And I will quantify it as not oversaw the biggest brand destruction the industry's ever seen, who architected the destruction of the biggest, the biggest destruction. Okay, this is not just she oversaw its failure. She was the architect of this failure. Because everything that's happened in Lucasfilm has gone through her. She's the one that pushed the agenda. She's the one that pushed the message on all of her underlings for literally every product that came out of the studio. It's all on her. She facilitated it. She orchestrated it. She masterminded it. That is what everybody is going to remember.
She'll certainly do her best to rewrite the narrative in her favour, that's for sure, like the lengthy interview with Deadline where she focused entirely on her successes and dismissed her failures and mistakes as someone else's fault. Mostly the small but vocal minority of toxic Star Wars fans who just couldn't see her brilliance.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah, sure, whatever helps you sleep at night, Kathy. You know, for someone who's all about breaking barriers and challenging female stereotypes, she's not exactly dispelling the myth that women are more averse to accountability, self-reflection, and owning their mistakes than Movie Bob is to a treadmill. Times have changed now, and paid shills and industry trades don't write the narrative on Hollywood legacies anymore. The internet does. And unfortunately for Kathleen Kennedy, the internet never forgets.
Yep.
Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
Yeah. She is literally leaving behind a pile of shit. A smoldering husk of what was once a great franchise. And yeah, there's nothing. The studio is unsalvageable. There's absolutely nothing that anyone can do right now to save the studio. Not just the franchise, the studio. It literally needs to be shut down and put away for like 10 years at minimum.